Hey y'all, how's it hanging? Rich here and welcome back to Rich Aesthetic. This is an Aesthetic Thoughts episode covering my take on WeChat and why super apps alike suck. Let's jump into this. WeChat is China's largest messaging app with about 1.2 billion monthly active users. But still, WeChat sucks. Just because hundreds of millions of people are using the app doesn't mean it's good. It's just been baked into society. In many ways, it might even be stifling the way society operates. By now, depending on where you're from, you may be pissed off. Believe me, I get it. Me being an Apple fan can sometimes get a bit warm when there are opposing opinions to the way Apple's software and hardware works. But if you will, please give me a chance to visualize for you what it is that I mean. You see, super apps do too much. WeChat has direct messaging, social networking, endless video feeds,
Emma, will you marry me?
live video, banking, ride booking, hotel or guest house booking, shopping, utilities, house and apartment searching, health services, and more, all built into the app. For those of you in the West who likely don't use WeChat, this is basically like having iMessage, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, any banking app, any utility payment app, any airline app, let's say Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, and the health app, all built into the same app. Now, if you think about it, doesn't that kind of sound like an operating system? I mean,
An operating system is a system software that manages computer hardware, software resources, and provides common services for computer programs.
I see one positive to this, and that's having one account for everything you do. And if you're not worried about security, I guess that's fine. However, I see an immense amount of negatives and, of course, security issues with a system like this. Now, back to the point about the operating system. So right now, being in the West, if I wanted to do something, first I'd open up my phone, then find the app that I need to do what it is that I'm trying to do. But with the super app system, I would open up my phone, then find the super app, and then I'd still have to navigate to the service that it is that I need. This is adding at least 2 steps to the process. And I mean, it all depends on what service it is that you're navigating to. For the more pro users out there, or a little bit more technological savvy users out there, you actually eliminate a lot of steps if you just use the Spotlight search and whatever the equivalent on Android is to just launch the app, like from a launch bar. You can't launch into something like a ride booking service that is in WeChat. But from my home screen, I can launch into Uber or Didi for that matter. This is why I kind of feel like companies like WeChat and Alipay are just wannabe phone companies that never figured out how to create a phone. So instead, they're just cramming everything they can software-wise into one app, kind of making for a bad user experience, in my opinion. Then there's the issue of security that I mentioned. These super apps want all of our personal information so that their services work. But I don't know how comfortable I am giving my banking information to the same app that expects me to spend money on these different services. I mean, they know exactly where I am and where I'm spending my money on at all times. The benefits of having these services spread out across different apps and websites is having that layer of separation between your digital financial identity and then your like digital, public identity where you're traveling to. Now, companies like Google and Facebook have been tracking its users for years, and I imagine in China there's the equivalent companies, probably WeChat itself too, that track our online habits already. Now, the benefits again though, you can use apps like blocking apps like OneBlocker again to block the cookies from being installed onto your computer, which are then tracking where you go website to website. And it kind of helps minimize the data harvesting that's happening. In a super app though, that's just not gonna happen. There's no way that Google is going to allow you to add one blocker or another, ad blocking or tracker blocking service into its super app. You can basically kiss that right goodbye. Forbes magazine, and pardon my pronunciation, Chandra Gundrapalli or Gundlapalli, wrote that super apps can actually stave off identity theft. I partly disagree to this. I mean, sure, you increase your risk of identity theft by signing up for lots of different services or creating all these different accounts for different shopping websites and then adding your banking information to that. But I really feel like that's a first generation of online shopping issue that largely we're overcoming, or at least now we're becoming more aware too. With things like Apple Pay or Google Pay, Samsung Pay, what have you, you're able to add your banking information into one location that is encrypted to your phone, at least Apple Pay is. And then if the website has something like Apple Pay, you can make the payment and all the website ever gets is your money, right? And obviously your shipping details. But the website itself won't have access to your security code or your card number or anything like that. That's all done for you in that encrypted wallet. Other methods, of course, you can create virtual card numbers through different services. I've never done that before. I've always used just a credit card, and credit cards have better fraud protection. But I feel like the next step to these virtual cards are just these encrypted digital wallets. Another reason I guess I kind of disagree here is because if you have all your services tied to one account in a super app, all the hacker has to do is hack this super app, and all of a sudden, if the hacker is able to get the information, they don't just have a bunch of accounts information now. Depending on what they're able to get their hands on, they would have access to these accounts and all the services that they use. That's a little bit more scary than if a hacker hacks DoorDash, for example, and then gets your Dash account. If you've been paying with Apple Pay, then all they get still sucks, but would be your email, maybe your phone number. I'm not sure, maybe the address too. But if you're using a digital wallet, they wouldn't have any information about your banking, or your financial history. With a super app, though, it decreases the targets that a hacker has to get at. And that brings us to my next point, payment workflows. China has the luxury of mobile payment at virtually every single shop or store you go to. At smaller shops here, the process is opening up WeChat or Alipay, scanning a payment code, inputting the price, and then tapping pay. At larger shops, it's usually opening up WeChat or Alipay, showing your own payment QR code, and then the shop clerk will scan you to pay. Now, while there are faster ways where you don't have to open the app by using context menus on iOS, the average person is not likely to use that. To put this in perspective, in the West, mobile payments are done through tap-to-pay NFC terminals. This is much more efficient, as without needing to do anything on your phone, you just tap the payment terminal, and then your phone will prompt you to scan your face or use Touch ID to then pay with the default card. You are, of course, able to swipe through the cards before scanning your face or your fingerprint before you pay. If you've been enjoying the video, please comment down below and subscribe. Both the workflows I just mentioned in China and the West also extend to public transportation, but without needing to authorize the charge. I can't tell you the amount of times I've waited in line at the subway station to enter or exit the gate because people are swiping through their phone looking for a QR code so that they can exit or enter the station. The NFC workflow allows you to be in the middle of doing something like composing a message. Then when it's your turn to exit or enter the gate, tap your phone, everything goes through, and then you leave or enter, going right back to what you were doing. Understandably, the advantage of the QR code is that the barrier to entry, price-wise, it's much, much lower for these smaller shops, as all they have to do is print out a physical version of their QR code. But larger shops like Nike and Gucci here have no excuse not to accept Apple Pay. Hopefully tap to pay in shops can make its way here to just give everyone more options. But that's the thing, it has to become societally relevant. It can't just be available here. This point is particular to how intertwined WeChat in China really is. Because everyone uses WeChat and China is still a developing country, it's likely easier for businesses to be using WeChat too, rather than paying for enterprise software like Slack or Microsoft Teams. Now, before you go running down to the comments saying that, well, Shanghai can't really be considered part of the developing economy, or that apps like WeCom, which is also run by Tencent, are a thing, anecdotally, I haven't seen that. At each of the 4 organizations that I've worked at here, they've always used WeChat. And when I asked them why can't we just use email, they'd always answer, quote, because it's more convenient, end quote. And to that I say, yeah, for you. What about me, or even you, the viewer, us, the working class though? I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm not at work, I don't want to get a message from my boss regarding work. I shouldn't have to be getting messages. I shouldn't even be at my boss's fingertips. Now again, I get that this is a thing in developing countries and at all these different companies that are kind of, startups trying to find their way in this modern China. But can a school really be considered a startup? And is it even the type of place that needs me to be available at every waking moment of every single day, holiday or not? My only option has been to mute the conversations I've in and then just follow the leader of the conversation and then unfollow them during the holiday. Getting messages from my work has gotten so bad, I just really don't use WeChat for my personal life anymore. Every once in a while, I hop on really quick to send someone a message, maybe check some things, make a post, but that's it. It's basically been wiped out. And I used to like using it a lot more, especially when I was in university and not working. And what I do now is when I'm in my work focus mode, and if you want to check out what a focus mode is, tap on the card that just popped up. But that's the only time that WeChat can actually get through to me, sending me a notification. I'm not sure how fast mobile payment systems or work-life balances can be implemented in the society here, but all of the above things I mentioned are cases for how something being first can beat competition that may be better. I am worried though, because in the West, super apps are starting to creep their way into our daily lives. Most obviously is Instagram trying to push their shopping feature so heavily. And another case would be PayPal, which is a bit of a weird one. I understand all of the different financial features they're bringing, like crypto and saving accounts maybe. And comparatively to banks, that makes sense. Banks have been allowing you to invest or save or have a credit line for many decades now. But like PayPal's also trying to be a shopping platform, which goes back to the very original security issue I mentioned. I don't want the place where I'm doing all my finances, or some of my finances even, to also have access to what it is that I'm spending my money on. I mean, they can see exactly how much money I have, and they could calculate how much money I'm making every month, and then equate that to what ads they're pushing, right? So it's not just what are the interests you have by where you're going online, but now it's also the amount of money you have. So they could be like, whoa, this person's a real high roller and likes watches. Rolex ad, Rolex ad, Rolex ad. In the tech community, people like to talk about how locked down Apple is, but in comparison, these super apps would be next level. Super apps are the physical version, or maybe the digital version, of a phone that has an ecosystem or operating system tied to it. I'd agree to say that as far as what you're able to get on the phone is pretty locked down, and even Apple's first-party services are very locked down. But other apps, other third-party apps that do make it onto the platform, which is millions on the Apple App Store, you're able to go off away from Apple products and continue using other services. Not through Apple's first-party methods, but they're still there and very available and capable of being used. Like Google Home if you have a smart home. So you could have the Google Home ecosystem or Zigbee, something like that for your home, but then be using an iPhone. And you can have any bank you want or any banking app you want on your iPhone. And that can all be separate from Apple's own first-party features. But in a super app, you wouldn't be able to do any of that. Do you really think PayPal is going to allow you to invest in stock with Robinhood? or Ameritrade or Goldman Sachs or something. No, PayPal will only allow you to use PayPal's own financial services. So I think that's something people really have to understand. Like, super apps are the next evolution of lockdown ecosystems like Apple, for example. Anyways, hopefully that wasn't too dire of an end note there, and I certainly hope you took something away from this video. The title was a bit clickbaity. It's nothing about hate or anything. I was just trying to put things into perspective, both for any of you over in maybe China's audience who use WeChat, as well as for the Western audience that hasn't really experienced something like WeChat yet. Either way, thanks again for watching the video. Leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts and opinions. And if you could, share this video with your friends and subscribe. Rich Aesthetic out.